Hi everybody. From time to time, I'm going to start addressing questions that I receive from certain topics, okay, on an ad hoc basis in special videos, this being the first of them. I received a message earlier today in response to the topic I spoke about a couple of weeks ago about how we should not worry about what others think, basically because it's our opinion of ourselves that matters the most. And the question that I had that I'm going to address today was really, Brett, how do you distinguish between somebody that's attempting to give you constructive feedback to actually make you better, they're being honest about it, and ill-conceived feedback? And it's a deep question, and it's impossible to answer this for all cases, but I will let you know how I handle these particular circumstances, this specific case actually. And that is that if somebody, first of all, I think it's important to identify who is in control of the session. At the end of the day, the person receiving the feedback has the ultimate control. May not seem like it, and it may seem like the reverse is true, but actually, definitely in your personal life, the person receiving the feedback does have the control. In a work environment, it may be a superior that has control initially, but over the long term, it's really the employee that has the control. Because at the end of the day, as a receiver of feedback, you are in control of what you do with that. So, back to the specific question. If the feedback is given by somebody that you know, trust will definitely play a big factor, and so will emotion. Do you know the person giving the feedback? And assuming that I know the person giving the feedback, I would put some credibility into that in relation to how I trust that person. Are they somebody that has a good track record with me? Somebody that has earned my respect or not? However, I would caution all of you to not just shut down all feedback, because at the end of the day, remember, you're in control as the receiver of feedback. And being in control doesn't mean that if you don't like the first 10 or 15 words of that feedback, that you just shut it down and say, and your emotions take over and you say, I'm not going to do what this person's telling me. I think what's really important, what I've learned to be very effective, is be like a sponge and listen to the feedback, assuming it's from a somewhat credible source that you know. Even if you don't like it, they might strike your emotions if it's constructive feedback. Don't let them take over. Don't let your emotions take over your ability to listen. I've been in situations before where parts of my biggest career growth and growth even in personal life has come from honest, candid, constructive feedback on something maybe I didn't do so well. Okay? So however, prior to me learning on really how to listen well to that feedback, I would just reject it based off of emotion. If it's something I don't want to hear, I just reject it and move on to the next thing that I'm doing. So my first piece of advice is be a sponge, absorb it, listen to it. Don't let your emotions carry over. And then you can decide how to respond to it. My second piece of advice would be to delay your response. Don't respond immediately off the cuff, okay? Because if you do that, you might be conveying a position that later you need to reverse, because after you've thought about it for a while, then perhaps the feedback is legitimate. And if you've responded as a reflex, then it doesn't quite bode so well for how you're engaging with that person that is actually attempting to help you. Okay? So take some deep breaths as you're getting the feedback, even if you don't like it, and that's the case that we're really talking about, and absorb it. Thank the person. Let them know that you'll consider that feedback and get back to them after you've given it some thought. And then during your quiet time, what you can do is, as you've listened and absorbed that feedback, you can formulate some additional questions if you need to clarify, or your feelings will take over. And be honest with yourself, as we've spoken before. Be truthful with yourself. You know, oftentimes we think that other people need to be truthful and honest to us, but we need to be truthful and honest to ourselves. And your brain is smart enough to detect if you should absorb this feedback or reject it. So don't reject it off of impulse. Now, the final point that I would make is that if somebody is evil and attempting to just tell you things because they're covering up their own deficiencies or their own sins of the past or insecurity, anything along those lines, be aware of that. And again, your initial response should be the same. Just listen, absorb, don't react. You can respond later. There's a big difference between reacting and responding. In this case, don't react. You'll respond. It's kind of like if you're getting a phone call and that phone's ringing. You know, 9 out of 10 people just feel that they have to pick up that phone because it's ringing. Let it ring. You can deal with this later. If it's important and valid feedback, or you're not quite sure, you need time to evaluate it, let that phone ring. They'll call back. Or more importantly and accurately, you can call them back. So I hope this helps. The subject is far deeper, but I wanted to address this specific question from somebody that gave me some feedback after the series in the form of this question from North America. So thanks very much, and I'll see you at the usual time on Seize Your Future, A Minute with Brett.